yet. I'm not ready for autumn. Autumn comes too soon. Autumn comes too soon.
Should take into account. And in our Sunday Spotlight, Connecticut's barred owls. A local elementary school teacher just released a fascinating documentary about them. He's joining us in Studio A. Tune in to CT24. It's Sunday morning at 8:30, of course, on Channel 3.
I'm not ready, not just yet. I'm not ready for autumn. Autumn comes too soon. I'm not ready for autumn. Autumn comes too soon.
It's now been 3 months since completing the Fledgling 4 documentary. The things that have transpired since the completion has been nothing short of amazing. After sharing the film out to family, friends, bird enthusiasts, and social media community pages, the film really started to gain in popularity. I soon began to get interview requests from newspapers, which resulted in some awesome coverage for the film. Getting any media recognition is always great, but it wasn't my first time. Just a year earlier, the United States Postal Service selected one of my drone photos to be an official U.S. stamp as one of only 4 to commemorate bridges across the country.
But today we're talking about the real deal, barred owls living right here in Connecticut. There's a new documentary out about them.
Fast forward a year later, the newspaper articles started to get the attention of local TV producers that wanted to share the story of elementary school teacher turned wildlife videographer.
I was going to watch a little bit of this to get prepared for this interview, and I was transfixed. I couldn't look away, Joe.
Thank you.
I think part of it, I wonder if you agree with me, the owl's eyes, as they look towards your camera, they kind of look like they could see your soul.
Oh.
Does that make them a better character for your storytelling?
Oh, I think so. I mean, they're just so
You
mysterious.
do not
and
have
people
to
tell me all the
be
time they wish
a
that they
bird
could see an
watcher
owl.
to appreciate this. I mean, it's a story. There are characters. There's excitement. There's tense moments.
Yeah.
There's big falls. These turned out to be pretty hardy creatures.
The Fledgling 4 was posted on YouTube in early July of 2024 and quickly hit 1,000 views. But with all the recognition on social media, combined with the interview on TV, the number of YouTube views for the documentary started to climb even more, and I was blown away by just how quickly the Fledgling 4 hit over 10,000 views just weeks after airing on local television. Was this the peak? What could possibly be next? Well, while one documentary was taking off, another one was already in the works. The warm days and extended daylight of the summer has passed. Our favorite spring and summer visitors have migrated south. Another documentary was unlikely in my mind, but I still wanted to seek out some new adventures. And as the colorful leaves fell down and Halloween decorations went up, I was no longer upset about the end of summer. Instead, I was excited. Excited for the next season. Owl season, that is. And what owl best gives off those spooky Halloween vibes? The Screech owl. Ask any wildlife photographer what their favorite subjects are, and many will reply with the eastern screech owl. After the documentary, I was able to drive around Connecticut and parts of New England looking for these amazing owls. The eastern screech owl, if you can't tell already, are very small. They range in height from only 6 to 10 inches and weigh between 3 and 8 ounces. Their wingspans range from 19 to 24 inches. And as with many owls, the females are generally larger than the males. The eastern screech owl comes in two distinct colors, gray and rufous, or reddish-brown. These owls have some of the most amazing camouflage. The way they blend in with the tree bark makes them almost impossible to locate, even when you're looking directly at them. And if you're lucky enough to spot one, you might even find two screech owls in the same cavity. They like to spend their days napping, soaking up the sun on cool fall and winter days. However, in the spring, they'll be a bit more active when they're caring for their offspring. But once the sun sets, their eyes will slowly open, and soon they will fly off for a night of hunting and eating. By mid to late October, the Fledgling 4 documentary was continuing to get a lot of exposure on YouTube, climbing to over 16,000 views. As the views racked up, so did the hearts, the likes, and the comments. I was just blown away by the words left behind from subscribers and first-time viewers, many leaving such positive remarks regarding the Fledgling 4 documentary. I heard from many that said they went through a roller coaster of emotions while watching the film, many even telling me they cried. Some even shared their own personal owl experiences, while others told me they found me by watching the interview on Channel 3. And it was even very cool hearing from viewers in other countries almost 4,000 miles away. A week later, I got my first invitation from the Pomfret Audubon Society to show my documentary and take questions from the wonderful people that attended. It was my first time speaking in that type of setting, but everyone was so welcoming and they really seemed to enjoy the film, which of course made me very happy. While all this was happening, another opportunity was taking off. Just a month earlier, I was able to collaborate on a picture book with a former teacher and coworker of mine. Together, we took the story of Flaco, the Eurasian eagle owl that escaped from its cage in the Central Park Zoo, and we turned it into a picture book for kids and adults. To the surprise of everyone, Flaco was able to live on his own in the wild for 13 months. And for the past year, we watched sketches turn to beautiful artwork, and words in a Google Doc turn to a descriptive story on actual printed pages. When it was released on Amazon, it quickly climbed to the top of the charts for newly released children's literature, and those who bought a copy seemed to really enjoy the story. On the last page of the book, Kathleen Conklin, the author of Flaco's Journey, was kind enough to include a photo that I took of Flaco when I had the chance to visit him in August of 2023. Unfortunately, Flaco died as a result of rodenticide poison that was being used to kill rats in the city. This once icon of Central Park warmed the hearts of many and thrilled visitors from all over the East Coast. We hope the book will carry his memory for those who knew him and for those that never got the chance.
Merry Christmas, baby. Reindeer's coming out to play. Santa Claus is packing the presents, making sure you've been behaving okay. Merry Christmas, honey. Yeah. The snowman's dusting off his hat. past. Putting on the show for everybody to give them a smile that lasts another year.
For a lot of people, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Christmas in New England. It's always a magical scene, and now the first snow has started to fall. I continue to check the owl nest, but I know from experience it's way too early for our favorite owl family to be back. But it doesn't mean I can't get more owls, because there's a certain rare visitor that finds its way to Connecticut and surrounding states, the snowy owl. The snowy owl is one of the heaviest owls due to the amount of insulation and feathers it has. The snowy owl spends most of the year in the Arctic and uses this insulation to protect it from the extreme cold conditions. However, in the winter months, when their food source gets scarce, they migrate south, and soon birdwatchers will find them on the beaches and along the coastlines of the United States, as it most resembles their native habitat in the Arctic. It's late December, and I'm up before sunrise. I'm on the hunt for my first snowy owl. I head off to the beach of Milford Point in almost complete darkness. The stunning sunrise is enough to distract me from the fact that I can't feel my fingers. But within about 20 minutes, the first light gives me a look at the landscape. However, it doesn't take long for me to see, as I look up and down the coast, today is not my day. Not a snowy owl in sight. But that's just how it goes sometimes. So I try again the following week, when I'm alerted to a snowy owl that has migrated from the north and has taken up his spot in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. Watch Hill in the winter is nothing like Watch Hill in the summer. The parking lots are empty, touristy gift shops are closed, and the only sound you hear are waves crashing, seagulls, and the occasional wind gust. It doesn't take long for me to spot Rhode Island's first snowy owl of the year. This majestic bird, with its blinding white feathers and piercing yellow eyes, has found comfort in a platform used by osprey in the summer. This tall wooden structure offers not only a great place to sleep, but a sense of protection and safety for these diurnal owls. And once the sun started to make its presence felt on this day, it was time for this owl to get some sleep. And as I made the 1-mile hike back to my car, I knew I wanted to come back again. I wanted to try for some better photos. And so I did just that. There's an old saying that goes, "Never forget to stop and smell the roses." So as I made the long trek down the beach, I made sure to take in all the beauty that Watch Hill had to offer, even if it was the middle of the winter. And as I got closer to the end of the point, some possible signs of snowy owl activity were scattered on the beach. Well, at least I hoped it was. But shortly after, I spot something white at the furthest tip of the point. Was it just a seagull, like always? So I set my tripod down and I looked through my camera lens to get a better look. I slowly laid down on my stomach and pressed against the frozen beach sand, forgetting all about the chilly winter weather. I held my breath as I took as many photos as I could before it flew away. However, photos were all I would ever have to remember this owl by, because just days later, unfortunately, it had died from the suspected bird flu that was running rampant throughout the United States. "2024 has come to an end, and celebrations begin, ringing in the new year. And January of 2025 was an extremely busy month for me. First stop, finding those snowy owls of New England. On this day, I pack my car and I head off to Massachusetts. Unfortunately, it was one of the absolute coldest days of the year, but that's just what the snowy owl loves. And right at sunrise, it doesn't take long to find one enjoying a fresh catch for breakfast." And after breakfast, I continue my search. I'm excited to see some snowy owls taking flight, while some take naps, some sneaky ones blending in with the snow, and some contrasting beautifully amongst the sunlit golden grasses of the marsh. Some far, and some near. I could barely press the shutter button on my camera with these frozen hands, but I pushed through, taking in all the amazing sights of the snowy owl, surveying what will be its home for the next 2 months. But once again, my amazing long weekend trip ends in tragedy, as this snowy owl that I captured on my last day died less than 24 hours later, falling victim again to the bird flu. A week later, I'm invited to do another presentation and viewing of the Fledgling 4 documentary at Hammonasset State Park in Clinton, Connecticut. The seats begin to fill, and I'm excited to share my story.
But we have a very special presenter. Joe Goak is a, first of all, teacher, I think is the primary.
Start to bear right and move deep into the forest to where I can hear the owls. But that's when I make a disturbing discovery.
It was after this presentation that I was able to make an amazing connection. I was able to join up with Freedom First Wildlife Rehab on my first owl release. This owl, which was involved in a car strike, was nursed back to health by an amazing rehabber named Gwen, who you will get to know later on in the film. She was kind enough to let me join in on this incredible experience and see firsthand as this owl was being released back into the wild. And as the owl sat and took on its new surroundings, the onlookers left, but I stayed. And as the sun set, I watched mesmerized and amazed for this wildlife success story. It was so incredible that I joined Gwen again the following week.
You haven't seen him when he was well. I know, right? A little different than his poor busted up. A little different than before. He's got his back to us, but you can walk up closer to him if you want.
All right, I just made it here to Providence, Rhode Island. We're at the Providence Children's Film Festival. They're about to show my documentary, The Fledgling 4, in about 45 minutes, so this is pretty exciting. We're going to go inside, check out this place, and see what it's all about. So here we go. And by 1:15, the lights were cut, and The Fledgling 4 was officially on the big screen. And when the movie was over, I was invited to do a Q&A session with some of the audience that was kind enough to stick around.
That was so good.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for staying. I would love to introduce the director of this documentary.
Place at the right time. And that's when it all started. I said, oh, I think we're going to have something here, so I just started filming every day. So that's kind of how it all started. Ooh, great question. It seemed to be the youngest one. Maybe, I don't know, the youngest one didn't want to be with its
older brothers and sisters, right? Just wanted to be on its own. But it did seem like that small one was the one that didn't want to stick around, yeah.
Sitting in the back of that room and watching your film on the big screen is pretty surreal, but I was happy to share it with the audience. I was even happier when I opened my email a week later to see a big congratulations as the Fledgling 4 received a Viewer's Choice Award for Best Documentary. For 8 months, I've been waiting for wings, hoping, praying, and wondering if the owls would return. Then finally, like hearing a song you haven't heard in ages. Like seeing friends you haven't seen in years, a first sign of hope that maybe we'll have some new offspring again this year. And as I checked the nest, I noticed debris has fallen in the cavity. It was a bit frustrating, considering just a few months earlier, I saw a bunch of debris in this nest, and like the crazy person I am, I decided to take it upon myself to clean it out. But where do you get a 30-foot pole? Well, where else do you get anything you want? Amazon, of course. And even though I spent an hour of my time trying to control this bending and flopping metal pole, more debris still fell in the nest by March. But now it's too late. I couldn't interfere for concerns that a female owl was hidden behind that debris. It's early March 2025, and today I find Dad close to the nest. A setting sun illuminates the sky beautifully behind him. But that picturesque scene becomes even better when I check the nest. Head turns and body movements. Oh, how I have waited so long for this moment. I mark my calendar and I count ahead 30 days because soon we will have new babies. How many, I wonder? But then, all my hopes of babies are suddenly halted as I witness something I never saw last year. The male watches as the female flies out of the nest to a nearby branch. They begin calling back to each other. I can't even move my camera fast enough, but in an instant, I see them mating. Both male and female stayed there for a minute. I couldn't believe, after filming 100 days last year, that I was still able to witness new behavior. And as I took it all in, Dad was gone. Mom stayed on the branch, as I assumed she'd take her place back in the nest. But she didn't. I never saw her fly back in. And as a matter of fact, it would be a very long time before I ever saw her again. For almost the whole month of March, I checked the nest every day, only to be greeted with the same sight of sticks and leaves. Where did Mom go? Did she pick a new nest? With all the scares of bird flu, did something happen to her? Dad was occasionally seen in the area, which was the only thing giving me hope. But honestly, as April grew closer, my hope grew smaller. But then finally, on April 4th, all the waiting was over. And with each passing nap, body adjustment, and head turn, I was finally confident in saying, it's time for some owl babies. But unfortunately, again, with the height of the debris, it would be another long wait before anything was large enough to show above those stubborn sticks and leaves. But if you want the babies to get bigger, there's only one way to do that. You feed them. And by mid-April, Mom was spending less time cuddling and more time hunting, something only the voles and mice weren't exactly happy to hear. And now the only thing left for me to do is sit and wait and find out what else is inside the trunk of that tree. A beautiful sunny day in mid-April. April weather in Connecticut can be unpredictable. Sun, rain, damaging winds, and even snow are all possible. Today it's the wind. Mom's talons grip onto the branches. For her, it's a delicate balance, both physically, holding onto a swaying tree branch, and time-wise, as she tries to balance her time napping and keeping her eye on the nest. I never had to venture far to find where she was, because if I didn't see her, I always heard her. An encouragement to rise up from that pile of sticks and take one step closer to becoming a fledgling. And then I see it, like a white flag waving from a bunker. A feather, maybe a whole wing, but it's a sign that there is life behind the debris. And soon that feather turns to a beak. The beak turns into the top of a fluffy white head. And that fluffy white head turns into two owlet faces with curious eyes that I haven't seen in that nest in over 365 days. And then, like clowns in a clown car, two heads turn into three owlets, all fighting for the same front row view of the outside world. But it's not just three fledglings, it's three growing fledglings, which means now Dad has to help hunt and assist Mom in these multiple feedings. And like the good dad that he is, he doesn't disappoint. One of the more memorable days of filming came in late April. While filming the owlets, that drumming sound rang throughout the woods. A woodpecker. A familiar sound. But this one was different. This one felt like it was close. And not like hundreds of feet away, but really close. Sometimes loud, sometimes muffled. So I observed the trees nearby until I found a dead tree, one that woodpeckers often choose for their home. And as I gazed up and looked, I saw something that I've never seen in my 8 years of doing wildlife photography. Look out, owls. Looks like you have a new neighbor. The pileated woodpecker, or pileated as some may call it, is the largest woodpecker in North America. It has an unmistakable black and white body with fiery red feathers sticking out from the top of its head. The red streak on this face tells me that this bird is a male. It uses its powerful beak to create holes and gain access inside dead tree cavities. But the question is, does this one have a mate? Is it making a nest? Are there more fledglings coming? I do absolutely love filming the owls every day, but on days like this, in complete downpours, it's straight up not fun. But in fear of missing out, I'm off to see what they are up to. And when I arrive at the nest, I see the owlets are alert, but dry. I find Mom close by, looking miserable as she watches over the nest, cold, wet, and tired. A mother's work is never done. But if you don't like the weather in New England, just wait a day, because by the next day, all the rain had passed. And if April showers bring May flowers, what do April downpours bring? Another owlet, perhaps? And there, for a brief second, revealing itself behind the deep walls of the tree cavity, is a fourth owlet. I could hardly contain my excitement as I film, because for the second year in a row, we now have the Fledgling 4. But that would be the last time I see all four together in the nest, because soon It was time for one owl to proclaim its independence. It's an early May morning. The April showers have passed. I can finally feel the warmth of the sun. It lights up the whole forest. The only darkness is in the eyes of the barred owl. The oldest owlet has become a bit active, but in order to fly, you must grow. In order to grow, you must get fed, and so Mom must continue to hunt. Sometimes the prey is easily identifiable, and other times I just call it something that used to walk on four legs. And when you're working 24/7 to raise four owlets, sometimes you have to keep a little of the meal for yourself. But soon things change. Mom hangs out right in front of the nest, chirping, enticing them, sometimes even flaunting food. But instead of feeding them, she shows them the mouse as she flies by the nest and sits behind it, just to see if she can get them to come out. It doesn't work automatically, but soon it does, and the owlets are ready to make the great climb. The call of the pileated woodpecker can be heard in the distance, and it's not hard to spot with its nest just a few feet from the owls. Each evening, I'm lucky enough to observe some new behaviors. Like clockwork, from 5:45 to 6 p.m., the male woodpecker flies back to the nest to call it a night. But before calling it a night, he always checks around for any dangers or predators before finally heading in to his nest. But I knew that if I was patient enough, there would be more inside that tree cavity, and boy was I right. The female pileated woodpecker. She could be identified by not having the streak of red on its face like the male does. Here she is poking around, staying semi-hidden from the outside world, and before long, I learned that both male and female take turns caring for the nest and whatever offspring may be inside. And as the male flies in for the night, the female flies out, and this changing of the guard would continue for the duration of my filming. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't have chosen a wet and rainy day for the first fledge. But you know what they say, when you gotta go, you gotta go. But which one would be brave enough to attempt the great climb? Now, the bark of a beech tree is already smooth enough, but when you combine the rain, even the sharp claws of an owlet struggle to find any type of grip. So what do you do when there's no branches to your left, no branch to your right, and you can't climb up? There's only one place to go, down. And I wasn't even ready to witness the leap of faith as the owlet jumped from the top of the tree with wings flapping to lighten the fall below. And with Mom breathing down my neck, I have to somehow follow the owlet's march to safety without looking like a predator. And if having to watch out for one adult barred owl isn't hard enough, now I have two. All the commotion has brought the attention of both parents. But if there's one thing I've learned, don't be fooled by the size and age of these owlets. They are built for these falls and equipped for the climbs, and this one was proof of just that. Just 12 hours later, after officially becoming the first fledgling, this owlet probably wishes it waited one more day to leave the nest. Spring rain continues to harass parts of Connecticut, and there isn't much this soggy owlet can do. Even Mom tries her best to get some rest, and Dad does as well, because now they have to keep their eyes on two sets of owlets, 3 in the nest and 1 outside. Now, we've already learned about New England weather. Here one day, gone the next. But it wasn't just the sun that made an appearance days later. The second of the 4 owlets successfully made its way out of the nest and got to enjoy some much better weather than its sibling. Well, almost, because as the afternoon progressed, strong wind gusts started to make its presence felt, and for an owlet, that could be a tricky situation. And as Mom calls out for the owlet to stay put, she isn't quite sure the owlet is getting the message. But like any good mother, sometimes you need to be there to comfort your child in any moment of distress. And what about soggy owlet number 1? Well, he was all dry, fluffy, stretched out, and enjoying his freedom.
Like that, and I figured if we were a coyote or anything.
It's nearing mid-May, and as I wait for the other 2 owlets to fledge, I'm excited once again. I get to join Gwen on another owl release back into the wild, but I'm very excited this time because today it's a great horned owl. It's impossible to know what these owls are thinking. Are they scared? Excited? Thankful? We'd like to think so. Are they looking back for permission to leave? I guess we'll really never know. But one thing is for sure, bird rehabbers like Gwen and those like her leave these birds in a much better state than how they were received. This juvenile is now ready to be independent, and just maybe it relocates its parents and they could be reunited once again. With every new sunrise comes another chance to see an owlet fledge. But with all my time filming, the actual act of an owlet leaving the nest escapes me more than not. And so today, I patiently watched the last 2 owlets, hoping to see one climb out. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. I have to get off to work. But I'll be back in the afternoon to see what surprises await. 10 hours later, I check the nest from multiple angles, but I only see one owlet. Now, that doesn't mean much. The inside of that tree trunk is like an apartment building. The hiding spots are endless, so I check behind the nest, and I find a very peaceful scene. This afternoon, there's no need to listen for a chirp. Mom sits out in the wide open, easy to spot. But I can't say the same for what I saw next. Owlet 3 does his best to stay hidden behind the swaying branches and bright green leaves. Today, this little guy almost won our daily game of hide and seek, but I'm more thrilled to see another owlet was able to make the great climb and find its mother and siblings. Once fledged, the owls don't do much except sit and sleep. But this one? Oh, this one was different. Owlet 3 was a mover and a shaker, always on the go, and keeping me on my toes as I tried my best to keep up. It's something we all do at times, realizing that we bit off more than we can chew, and so does number 3, as it sees that maybe moving up higher wasn't the best of choices. And while all that commotion was going on, Owlet 1 and 2 seemed unfazed, as they preferred some sibling bonding time over all the acrobatics. But you know what they say about the young kids. The minute you take your eyes off them, well, you know the rest. For days I monitor the nest and the last owlet. For now, he chooses the safety and comfort of the nest over life with his siblings. But on this day, maybe it's for the best. More rain is in the forecast. A chance for it to stay dry. But soon that rain grows more intense, and Mom is everything but dry. By late morning, the brief but intense rains have passed, giving relief to one soggy owlet. The clouds will soon give way to afternoon sun, and so I decide to give them some alone time to dry out and rest. But later that afternoon, as I make my way back, an empty nest stares back at me, and not knowing where that fourth owlet went, all I could do is look and listen. And it doesn't take long to find the first owlet, enjoying its late day nap. Owlet 2 is a short distance away, preening those almost completely dried out feathers. And not far from its siblings, owl number 3, stretching out those long, fuzzy legs. But where was owlet number 4? Well, mistake number 1 for me was looking up in the trees. I have a feeling Mom isn't gonna like this, but the last of the fledglings has decided it wants to join its sibling high in the treetops. Well, this should be interesting. And all the commotion has now got Mom's full attention. As the days and weeks pass, the owlets become more active. The oldest of the four has decided to stray away from the other three and find its own spot. And you can bet Mom has her eye on it from the start. From a ground level bush over to a tree trunk, the owlets are now looking to go higher and higher into the treetops, making filming very difficult. And just when you think they stop and pose in an open spot, free of leaves and cluster, nope, they just keep on moving. One second it's the perfect resting spot, and the next second it's no longer acceptable. And while some owlets move, some are content with their bird's eye view, while others just lounge and sleep. So the only real way to spot them is to listen for the hissing. As we learned last year, the loud screeching hiss is a unique call from the juvenile barred owl. I had so many people tell me in the Fledgling 4 comments on YouTube about hearing it themselves, which was cool to read about the shared experiences. The hiss was my own personal radar detector for the owlets, and if a parent brought in food, that really got the hissing at full volume. But while the owlet stayed hidden behind clusters of sun-touched leaves, it was something I saw in clear view later that afternoon that I never saw before. Later that afternoon, I came back and set up my gear. My hope was to capture some more footage of the active but tough to find owlets. But as I turned on my camera, I made the ultimate rookie mistake. No memory card. And no memory card means no filming, and maybe even losing track of the owlets as they continued to move further from the nest. Now I could have just called it a night and got some rest, but I decided to race home and go get the memory cards. And faster than you can say the Fledgling 4, I was already back in my car and headed back out to film. And as I drove down the road, something caught my eye up ahead. The sun glare made it hard to see. It almost looked like someone left something on the guardrail, a bag or maybe garbage. But as I drove by it, I saw it, an adult female owl in full view. No trees, no leaves, no branches. I held my breath as I drove by, knowing she would most likely fly off, only adding to the agony of having to go back home for those memory cards. I pull up around a corner about 100 feet past her. I had to grab my gear and get it set up fast without scaring her. I felt like I was moving super slow and fast at the same time. But what would make her fly? Would it be my car door closing? The beeping of my trunk opening? the clicks and clacks of setting up my tripod. As I got the camera set up, I was so nervous, I still forgot to put the memory cards in. My hands trembled, trying to fit them into the appropriate slot. Just take a deep breath, I told myself, as I peek around the corner. And that's where I discover Mom, still sitting there, unfazed by the commotion that felt so loud and disturbing in my head, but in fact left her unfazed. And as I hit the record button, I could finally breathe as she stayed there, posing beautifully for the next 5 minutes. And even when she decided to relocate, it was only 5 feet back in the woods. I stood there in awe as she napped peacefully, while quite a distance away, her offspring were doing their own thing without her. And then a short time later, I gathered my stuff and I let her be. I was so thankful I was able to capture that moment onto my memory card, the same memory card I almost decided to leave back at home. For about 6 weeks, I watched the pileated woodpecker family just as closely as I did the owls. Not knowing anything about this species, every day was a mystery. Both male and female, flying in and out, taking turns. What was all this behavior about? And more importantly, what else was inside that tree? I was told there wouldn't be any babies until June, and by mid-May, I was growing impatient. But lucky for me, there was no waiting until June, because today, I was about to see what Mom and Dad had going on inside that home of theirs.
I see you struggle like butterflies in water. Can't keep moving.
One of my favorite memories of filming this documentary was going on all the owl releases. And today I'm excited because I'm off to visit Freedom First Wildlife Rehab and not only get a sneak peek behind the curtain of owl rehabilitation, but get to know the special person that makes it all happen.
My name is Gwen Malone Rice. I am from Freedom First Wildlife Rehab. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we specialize in owls.
And that specializing work that Gwen does is truly special. Upon arrival, I'm treated to a tour of Gwen's basement area where she does all her work to help the injured and sick owls recover. I'm even greeted by one great horned owl that wants to know, who's the new guy? Gwen uses her background in physical therapy to nurse these beautiful creatures back to health after they sustained injuries that have resulted from things like car strike and even poisoning. Gwen does everything from treating joint and claw issues with daily stretches to even hand feeding the owls back to health. And although these experiences are super rewarding, the outcomes are not always so positive.
The hardest part about rehabilitating owls and working with them is the injuries and the loss. We do have a lot of loss, and a lot of those cases are from human causes.
But I can say firsthand, watching Gwen do what she does so well, there's always more positive outcomes than negative, thanks to the great lengths that she goes through to get these owls back into the wild. Gwen is not only an owl rehabber, but an educator. You can find her at many different events on the weekends sharing her story, teaching others about owls and ways that humans can help keep them safe. And you'll always find her with a couple of her ambassador friends. These are the owls that unfortunately sustained injuries that they could never recover from. Gwen was nice enough to introduce me to some of her ambassadors on my visit, her two eastern screech owls, Texas Pete and Minnie May.
So this is Texas Pete. He's probably not gonna cooperate. Come on. Minnie May was caught in a chimney, so the shoulder's permanently dislocated.
Outside, Gwen showed me around her aviaries, where she had a hawk, 3 barred owls, and another great horned owl.
He has neurological damage to that wing, so he doesn't molt his feathers correctly. So I have to go in and take my fingernail or a little something sharp and open up that waxy, and then the feather will unfurl. But we have to do that every year for him. Otherwise, he just has these sticks that stick out.
The amount of work and cost that goes into taking care of these owls and cleaning up after them is just mind-boggling. But as I talk with Gwen on my visit, she tells me there are ways that we can all help her organization.
If you'd like to help, we're always looking for donations. Donations of supplies, donations of time, and volunteering. Reach out to us if you'd like to help. We're always looking for extra hands.
There is an Amazon wish list on the Friends of Freedom First Facebook page. There you can purchase much-needed supplies to help Gwen and her organization. You'll also find information on current fundraising that is happening, which is a great spot for folks to make a donation to the cause. Freedom First Wildlife Rehab also sells Screech and barred owl boxes. These are made by local community members. The funds received through the sales of these boxes goes to help Gwen and the birds under her care. And just when I thought the visit couldn't get any better, Gwen let me actually handle one of her ambassador barred owls, which didn't start off so great, but I quickly stepped up my game. And after filming these owls from a distance the last 2 years, it was simply amazing having one of these just inches away, gripping onto my hand. And as I wrapped up the interview, I had to know, why does Gwen do all of this? What is her favorite part?
The best part about rehabilitating owls is the outreach that we're able to provide, reaching out to people, educating people about owls in our community and what they can do to help them. I also just love them. This work never, ever gets old.
I will run through fire. I will carry you through heat. I'll do it all over again.
Filming in June is always bittersweet. The sweet part is that the cute little camouflage puffballs that were camped out in the highest of treetops have now moved down to the lowest of branches. They look older now, as most birds do in a short period of time. Even the woodpecker babies look nothing like the mini dinosaurs that poked their head out of the tree hole just a short time ago. And not only that, I discover that there was actually 3 babies inside that nest. And as they grow, so do the feathers. They've even started to develop the bright red top like their parents. And eventually, their cry for food turns into this young bird even making the call of the adult pileated woodpecker. The bitter part about filming in June? I know my time with the owls is down to just about 3 weeks. July has always been a stopping point for me, and now it's fast approaching. So I cherish the time I spend with the new fledgling 4 as they stay close to the ground. Many days I find 3 together, while number 4 finds its own spot to hang out. But what else is new? Mom is still feeding her babies, but it's less frequent, and so if they want food, they start to hone in on every little thing they see moving on the ground. Bugs, grubs, and sometimes just leaves or sticks when they come up empty. But if you're one of the lucky ones, Mom might even bring you a snake. But what are you supposed to do when you're the baby of the family and your only source of food is little twigs and shriveled up leaves and you're too inexperienced to catch your own big prey? Well, that's when you let the pros handle it. In my nearly 250 days filming over the past 2 years, I've seen pretty much everything, but there was always one thing I could never get: actual footage of an adult barred owl catching its prey. That is, until now. And it looks like baby barred owl has gotten the word. Dinner is served. While the female barred owl is out catching prey for its kids, the male woodpecker is busy feeding his. For days I watch him feed 2 babies, and I wonder whatever happened to the third, which was never seen again. It's a lot of work to feed these hungry ones. Both parents spend their days taking multiple trips back and forth, collecting small insects and feeding it to their babies. But where does all this food come from? Well, this evening I sat and I watched Dad go to work, collecting his meals. To find food, a woodpecker will drill away at tree bark and the wood beneath it, using its powerful beak. With each forceful punch, chunks of wood go flying in all directions. A pileated woodpecker can hit these trees at speeds of 15 miles per hour, and they can peck an incredible 20 times per second. Despite these high speeds and impacts, the woodpecker has a unique anatomy where their long tongue wraps around their brain, protecting it from injury. Next, they will use their excellent hearing to listen for bugs crawling and chewing. They will continue destroying all layers of the tree until they locate their prey. And once they do, they'll use their long, barred, sticky tongue to extract these tiny bugs out of the wood with great quickness and precision. And once dinner is collected, all the little ones can do is wait, sound off with their begging call, and fight for position so they could be the first to get a mouthful of ants and other tiny insects. But with Dad nearby, the wait won't be long at all.
Hey everyone, hopefully you're staying cool in this heat wave that we are in here in the early part of summer. I'm meteorologist Steve Glazier. We had 98 degrees, new record high on Monday in the Hartford area. Also had a record high in Bridgeport. We'll break more records again on Tuesday as another hot day is upon us. And it's going to really start to finish uncomfortably warm. By 9 a.m. it feels like temperature.
It's our first heat wave of the summer. Temps reaching nearly 100 degrees. Humidity levels that are beyond uncomfortable for 3 straight days. Not a time to be covered in downy feathers, but these owls, like most birds, can cool themselves down. This technique seen here, captured by a fellow wildlife photographer, is known as gular fluttering, or what we know it as, panting. Owls don't have sweat glands, so this technique of panting helps promote evaporative cooling. Owls may also sit with their wings spread out away from their body to help regulate their body temperature. This allows for heat dissipation, which results in more cool air to come in contact with their body and less heat trapped in their plumage. Even a local pair of eagles that I filmed during the heat wave had to find a way to cool down from this nasty stretch of weather. In my last week of filming, the owls are very active. Every night, I find them in a new section of the woods. Their short flights keep them constantly on the move. And each night when I come to visit, I walk laps around the spots I've seen them before, walking up and down the tree lines. And of course, I listen to all the bird calls, firing out from the woods. With my Merlin bird app in hand, I finally hear it. The app confirms it, a juvenile barred owl. Now, we just have to follow the hissing. The heat is enough to knock you out, and trust me, I know, with long sleeves and pants, it's pretty brutal. But now the owlets have moved to a swampy area of the woods, and that means one thing: mosquitoes. And this year they're relentless, so if I'm going into the swamp, I gotta make sure I'm armed. And in the far distance, I see one owlet, and it's so muggy and foggy, The bright greens and yellow of the forest appear muted. And soon after, the hiss alerts me to owlet 2 and 3 hanging out on a nearby branch. But the mosquitoes are just too much, swarming me and the camera, the bug spray not doing its job. I decide to leave for the night. And as I do, I nearly walk right into a silent owlet number 4. But for the life of me, I can't figure out why it's not looking at me. Its attention seems to be on something behind me, and whatever it is, I'm too busy trying to capture video to even notice. But the footsteps and the sounds of crunching leaves get even louder. I quickly turn around to see what is coming up behind me. Only 3 months old and already laser focused. As I sit here in August, 1 year after being on Channel 3 News, the Fledgling 4 documentary has now surpassed 30,000 views. But this past year is history. My focus is now on one single week, and more specifically, my last week with the owls, as June ends and July begins.
In the dark, far from the harbor.
In my last days of filming, I know one thing. I won't miss the heat, I won't miss the early mornings, the late night editing, and I definitely won't miss the mosquitoes.
I lost all direction, got caught in the veil.
But I will miss the Fledgling 4. I'll miss their antics, as some of them have now become expert hunters, while others are, well, still figuring it out.
Lost in the sea.
And even though I don't get all 4 together in one shot, they were always close by. Deciding to call it quits after nearly 200 days of filming is tough.
Till you set me.
And on the last day I filmed them, the heat wave has lifted. It's 20 degrees colder than it was 2 days ago. The breeze and relief feels amazing. And as the sun sets, it gets a bit too dark to film. So I pause and I take one last look.
She was sinking.
People will always tell you, don't say goodbye. Instead, say, see you later. But with wildlife, like the woodpeckers, which have now fledged, leaving behind an empty nest, and even these owlets, I know there are no see you laters. Once I stop tracking them, they will be gone. So I pack my things, and I give one last look to the 3 owlets on the branch, and that pesky 4th one behind them. And I whisper, goodbye.
I didn't know love. Lost in the sea. I didn't know love.
Or at least, I thought it was goodbye.
I didn't know love till you set me free. Didn't know love.
Just when I thought I wouldn't see him again.
A new place, a new home. For a while, let me feel alive. Nothing to hold me back. Take my time, just enjoy the ride. A new man passing by. Life is good, best I've ever felt. Get me up, somewhere new, somewhere I can find myself. Oh, I feel so alive. As I reach out to the sky. I found my way. I was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day. Cause I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay. Cause I found my way. Cause I found my way. Cause I found my way. My way. Find my way. My way. Cause I found my way. My way. Find my way. My way. I found my way. I was in the dark against it all, but made it through the day. Cause I found my way. In bad times, I know I'll be okay. Cause I found my way.